So this morning, we get the big news about the Pittsburgh Steelers trading wide receiver George Pickens. Now, on screen right now is going to be the full details of the trade. The Cowboys, of course, get George Pickens and a 2027 6th-round pick. The Steelers get a 2026 3rd-round pick and a 2027 5th-round pick. Again, full details on that. And this is not surprising because a couple weeks ago, I think the day of the draft, I think when reports came out, maybe the day before, there was reports or rumors, however you want to put it as, that Steelers, George Pickens, and or Lions, Jameson Williams could potentially be moved during this time. Now, both teams, now again, from the reports of what it said, that both teams weren't actively looking to trade them, but if a good deal came up, that they would take it. And so far, we haven't really heard anything about Jameson Williams since then. It seems like he's going to be on a team for now. Now, things could definitely change with that, but for George Pickens, it came out of nowhere this morning that he was traded for that one. And in the video I made about 2 weeks ago, I thought at least both of them you get a 2nd-round pick because of the high talent of what they can bring. Certainly can be a potential number one wide receiver for a team, even though they do bring some baggage. And we went over, of course, with Jameson Williams, the suspension and so forth. And for George Pickens, certainly with that, definitely a lot of antics on the sidelines, fighting with multiple players. There was times where he was, I think, late to meetings and so forth. I think he was benched in the Dallas game, ironically, now looking at it. So there was a lot of controversy with them, with the antics and so forth. And it's, at some point the Steelers just looked at it, it's just too much to handle. They bring in DK Metcalf, and maybe that was a signal that they were going to get rid of George Pickens because of the money. With him going to his final year of his deal, it just seemed like that was pretty evident that maybe DK Metcalf was the replacement to George Pickens. But I thought maybe, hey, you could run it for a year, have a great wide receiver duo alongside whoever the quarterback's going to be, Aaron Rodgers, Will Howard, Mason Rudolph, whoever you want to throw out there at the quarterback position. But they move off of him. And again, I was a little surprised that they didn't get a 2nd-round pick, but the competition isn't horrible. A 3rd and 5th, which is, I assume this is the best offer that they were going to get for Pickens at this point. So again, I think they wanted to get this deal done before they got into started the season with the final year of his deal, which we're going to get into real quick here. So he's, again, final year of his deal, $3.65 million on his contract. He's an unrestricted free agent in 2026. And he'll be age of 25. And you look at, as well as projected contract of what he's going to get on Spock Trek, they project him to get an annual of $25.3 million or a 4-year, $101 million deal. Is that something that Dallas Cowboys can afford? That's going to be tough because you have a lot of money tied up. You have to still deal with Micah Parsons on top of that. He's probably going to be demanding to be the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. I mean, that's what that's why I presume that he's going to try and push for, at least at the very, the second highest, which is, you look at Myles Garrett, around $40 million. So he's going to be, again, really pushing for that. You already have CeeDee Lamb, who's making big money. Dak Prescott making big money, $60 million a year on average. So it's going to be very difficult to see where he, for the Cowboys, how they can fit him into the cap situation. And, is it going to be beneficial? Is it going to be the right decision to have almost kind of go with the Bengals route of having 2 highly paid wide receivers and 1 highly paid, in terms of Dak Prescott, the highest paid per year on average in NFL history on your roster? I don't see that. This could be, I'm a little bit concerned with that this could potentially be a 1-year rental, a 1-year deal, especially when the compensation they give up with a 3rd and 5th round pick. It's a decent amount. Again, I thought they would get a 2nd, but a 3rd and 5th isn't horrible. It's not bad at all. So there's definitely a lot of pressure on Jerry Jones to get this deal done. And on top of, again, what we talked about for the antics and how he's going to be on the sidelines, how is he going to handle that being alongside CeeDee Lamb, who is one of the elite wide receivers, one of the premier wide receivers in the league. Is he going to like that? His focus isn't always going to be on him. We'll see with that, how he handles it. But I guess, the attitude problems, perfect situation to land in for the Dallas Cowboys to get a player like that. But for the positives, because we already know the negatives about that, we know the controversy with him. That's certainly a broad thing, and that's why the Steelers eventually moved off of him. You look at what he did and what he can offer for the Steelers, or for the Cowboys, and it was pretty evident that they needed a wide receiver too, and I thought they were going to draft one early on in the draft. A lot of people pinned Matthew Golden to them in the 1st round. They don't. They go with Booker, the offensive lineman, and just never really tackled that position in the draft, relatively high at least. And I think it's an amazing complementary wide receiver to CeeDee Lamb. No doubt if he can excel the way I think he can with his capability, he can be arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. There's no question about that, at least up there. The stats on here, this is from PFF here of last year's grade. He ranked 76.9. If you do care about the PFF grade, 27th in the NFL, 78 even for the receiving grade, 25th in the NFL. You look at the stats here. It's going to be a little varied because I'm going to bring up his career stats, and it's based on ESPN, so the stats may vary, at least for this past season. But 100 targets, 59 receptions, 900 yards, 3 touchdowns. And you look at the advanced stat here. I think another thing that really jumps out to you is the yards per reception, 15.3, because if you look at least last year, that really jumps out to me is he was first in that, 18.1. So he can get open. He has the skill set. He has the capability. I love him as a player. The attitude-wise is very concerning. It's tough to overlook, again, which is why the Steelers eventually looked at it as like, we can't pay this guy $25+ million a year and keep dealing with this and antics and so forth, even though he's a highly talented wide receiver. But I think what he brings to the table for this team, especially again the skill set, is impressive. You look at the career stats here: 293 receptions for almost 3,000 yards, or 2,841 yards to be exact, 12 touchdowns. He did have his breakout season his past year, or 2 years ago in 2023, with over 1,100 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns, 63 receptions. So everything across the board was career highs. It did take a step back, but again, you look at the quarterback situation with what they had there with Justin Fields, who people don't view highly as a passer, and Russell Wilson at this point of his career, not the best, atop of Arthur Smith, who I really don't like as an offensive coordinator. I think he's horrible. He's horrible at managing talent, especially great talent, what he had in Atlanta, and did the same thing with Pittsburgh. So you can pin it, and there is some issue, there is some fault on George Pickens, no question about that. I'm not saying that he's blameless in this situation, but I think there is some valid reasons of why the stats maybe aren't as impressive as maybe people hope to be or want to be. Again, I think it's a collection of just the quarterback situation as well as the offensive coordinator with Arthur Smith this past year at least. So he goes to maybe a little bit better spot. I mean, we'll see with that. Certainly a quarterback spot as of right now, with comparing what the Steelers have. I mean, Dak Prescott is a much better upgrade than what they have right now in Mason Rudolph. So no question there. That's a good signing or good upgrade at that position. But again, there's controversy. The Cowboys, we know who they are, dysfunctional and so forth with Jerry Jones. So we'll see how it plays out and with the antics of how long that's going to last with that side of it. But I think he can be definitely a great complementary piece, a great wide receiver too for CeeDee Lamb. And I think this is the second wide receiver too they've been missing for the last few years. I think relatively since Amari Cooper left. This is another type of player where he can really take this offense to another level and really help Dak Prescott out in his stats. I mean, is there a chance that, dare I say, like they could potentially have 2 1,000-yard receivers? I mean, they both have the capability of that. There's no question about that. You look at, again, 2 years ago in 2023, over 1,000 yards receiving, well over 1,000, 5 touchdowns. I think he can bring that to the table. At the very least, what he did this past year, 900 yards receiving, what he's done in his career, I think that is more in play than what they're looking for the wide receiver 2 position. And it may not, Pickens may not like that, and we'll see how that plays out as the season goes on. If he's not getting all the targets compared to CeeDee Lamb, which there's no question CeeDee Lamb should be commanding that type of the attention and targets too, because he is a elite receiver. Even though I love George Pickens as a player and what he brings as a skill set, CeeDee Lamb is just much more better. And certainly again, for the attitude wise, CeeDee Lamb's even much better than what George Pickens is. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. If they can really balance out the issues that he has on the sidelines, the antics and so forth, and if they try and keep him in check in a way to see how he plays alongside CeeDee Lamb, which again, a player who really demands a lot of targets and receptions, how much is that going to hurt George Pickens? How much is that really going to bother him? So, the Cowboys are taking all the risk again because they have him for a 1-year deal. They have to pay him, at the very least, if you go off a spot track, $25 million at the very least. And you look at, again, the rest of the roster, you have to worry about Micah Parsons, who they're trying to get a deal done with, and that's going to be, again, a ton of money, arguably, if not the highest paid defensive player in the NFL with that as well. On top of, again, the other contracts we talked about with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. So, they're taking all the risks to give up a decent amount of, capital to get him. 3rd and 5th round picks are nothing to joke about. It's not, multiple 1st round picks, not anything insane like that, but it's still decent compensation for a receiver that at the worst case scenario, you're looking at potentially of a 1-year rental. And then he leaves. And then you're sitting there with starting from scratch over again, looking for a wide receiver 2 and down, a 3rd round pick in 2026. So we'll see how everything plays out in this situation with that. Again, I think skill set, it's potential, it's a high risk, but it's no doubt high reward in this situation. So we'll see how things play out with the Dallas Cowboys into 2025 with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, as well as, for the Steelers too. I'm not going to make a big thing about it because it's more about George Pickens, but we're going to see what happens with wide receiver 2 for the Steelers because that's definitely a big need as well. You have Wilson, who they drafted last year out of Michigan. That maybe they're hoping he takes a huge step forward. You have maybe Calvin Austin if he steps into that. There's rumors I saw about Allen Lazard maybe being traded to Steelers. So we'll see what happens as well with the Steelers too for wide receiver 2 alongside DK Metcalf. But for the Cowboys, definitely interested to see how Pickens and CeeDee Lamb play alongside each other.